Hello everybody, Cone Dodger here. Welcome back to Automation, the car company tycoon game. So in last week's episode, I asked everybody to vote on which engine to choose for the next generation of Vector Vextron and Vector Automotive in general. And the options were between the... let's see, how did I save these? I don't even remember what it is I named them. I think I said option something. Yes, option V8, option 4-cylinder. Voting was very close the whole time. 4-cylinder people, very much so the quiet group. V8 people, very much so the vocal group. A lot of comments of choose the V8, V8, go for the V8. And yet the whole time the 4-cylinder was getting all these votes. But in the end, only 2 votes separated the two. And V8 came out on top, so I will be choosing the V8 for the next generation of Vector Automotive engines. And the first appearance it will have is in the next generation Vector Vextron. Also, last episode, I asked people who have automation or are interested in perhaps building a car to compete with the Vextron to submit your cars, and I will pick through them and try and do some one-on-one comparisons between your car and my car. Now, I kind of expected to get 2, 3, maybe 4 entries. Well, it turns out I got 10 entries. And because of that, and because it was really cool to be getting the entries and seeing people kind of get on board with the whole spirit of the challenge I've set up here, I want to go through all of them and kind of do like a review episode of you guys' cars. So that's what we're going to do this time. I know I said I was going to build the next car for our lineup, but I honestly did not expect this many submissions, so a little bit of a change of plans. And apologies for not having a whole lot of videos this week or taking so long to get this video out. It's been a little bit of a rough week for me going through inventory at my real job and been dealing with a bad stomach bug and stuff like that. So it's not been fun times the past week, but it has been a lot of fun seeing your submissions and seeing the race between the 4 and the 8 cylinders. And don't worry, you 4-cylinder guys, there's still a future for Vector Automotive. Our 4-cylinder future is not dead. It's just not the second engine we're going to build, or I guess our first actual in-house engine. Alrighty, so I am going to get myself set up, and I am going to review everybody's cars, and then pick my favorite 3, and those 3 will go head-to-head with the next generation of the Vextron. Okay, so the first entry I want to look at is somebody who may be pretty familiar to all of you, and that is the Tom. He has his 2000 AMW Raven with the RA488 engine. If we click it here, we can see that it has a sportiness of 44.5, tameness of 53.8, comfort 25.7, prestige of 27.6. I don't know why my brain just completely blanked out on that. And then F, I guess, is safety. Interesting, of 22.9. It is pretty light, 2,293 pounds. Let's take a look at it. I have not really looked overly... oops, that was the wrong button cone. I have not really looked through these cars in any extensive manner. I have just loaded them up to make sure that they work and they open and all of that good stuff. And this is about as far as I've seen of any of them. So I will be giving basically my first impressions of these cars. First impressions of the visuals, I see that he uses the same body shell, which he did mention in his email. His description is, it's small, light, and reasonably cheap, but packs a decent punch thanks to the engine. Alright, we'll have to take a look at that engine. Looks like he was smarter than Vector and put big fenders on this car, so it's got a lot of tire under it, which will make it slightly more expensive, that's for sure. Looks like we have a rather Japanese-styled rear. Has a little bit of that R33 influence to it. I like the grill for that bottom exhaust kind of plate area. Nice detail with the reverse lights. Tom always takes his body detailing pretty seriously, so I expect that level of detail in the body. Ooh, let's poke under here. Let's see. Let's get a. Looks like we're going up against a V8, so we know which way he thought the right way to go for our company was. Probably for the V8, and it looks like it's not taking up too much of that engine bay. The front end styling, we got one of those reversed kind of cowl style hood scoops near the front, so it's not really the cowl, but basically an air release scoop. And then the front has a somewhat modern look to it. We still have the squared headlights of the late 90s and such. I like the details of the fog lights. A little bit, I guess this is going to be the number plate right here. But overall, a kind of sleek, modern, early 2000s look to it. Not overdone, not too flashy. Personally, I don't know that the chrome in the grille personally is to my taste, especially when you have the black body trim here. So I think maybe with a body colored grille here, it would look a little bit sharper, but that's all my personal taste. Let's now take a look at the engine itself. Alrighty, indeed, a 4.79 liter V8. Looks like it's overhead valve, doesn't it? Let's see. It is a long stroked, 97.5 stroke to an 88.5 bore. Pretty expensive bottom end. Forged steel, I-beam steel, and forged pistons. So we're not holding any punches there. We're putting a lot of money into that bottom end. It is indeed pushrod with a aluminum block and aluminum head setup. Fairly tame compression and cam profile. It is NA, obviously, we saw that. And it is multi-point EFI. Running on regular unleaded, that's a nice thing. That is nice. Kind of keeps it in that same category as our car. Getting all the timing out of it. 6,000 RPM rev limit. Some long tubular headers, so we put some money into that. He was smarter than me and kept his exhaust diameter small. I often forget that the approximate power is per pipe, not per exhaust system. I wish the verbiage was a little bit different there. Okay, so we can see the dyno chart here. It is saved already, so we don't necessarily have to run it. 270 horsepower, 298 foot-pounds. Very top-heavy. I was not expecting that. It has a lot of overrun. Let's actually listen to it for just a little bit here. Sounds like your typical cross-plane V8. At 4.7, basically 4.8 liters, it's certainly not what I would call a small displacement V8 anymore. Ford was building this size engine in this era. All of those first modular V8s were of this size. Chevy also has LS-based engines that are of this size, so I would say this is a pretty American-styled engine, somewhere between what you would expect from Ford or Chevy. It's not necessarily similar to either in every way. It's somewhere in the middle. Okay, so let's see. Reliability is good. Weight is pretty low. Economy is 20%. That's not bad at all. And a decent responsiveness. Let's just look through the trim stuff here real quick. It is a 6-speed running sports compound. Pretty tame brakes, but 4 piston calipers front and back, so dumping the money into that, something that we didn't necessarily do. It is fully clad and is using some aero modifications, wing and lip. Standard interior with standard entertainment and power steering, ABS, nothing else, and standard 2000s safety. It looks like we went for the sports on the suspension, and that was about it. Let's look at the detail stats. I guess we need to run the thing first. We pretty much already know what these stats were. It is getting 29.3 miles per gallon. These estimates to real life are actually a little high, so that's still pretty good. And yeah, I'm not seeing anything else here that necessarily jumps out at me as being being ridiculous or way outside the realms of reality. So I think Tom did a really good job here of kind of keeping in the spirit of the Vector Automotive Challenge. The material cost is $64.66 and 138 production units. We will take a look later after I review everybody's cars and I pick the final 3 to compare versus my car, how that compared to the Vector. For now, we'll just kind of take note of that. And one last thing I forgot to look at, it is a glued aluminum material for the chassis, double wishbone, and polymer body. So there is the wrap-up of the AMW Raven. Sounds a lot like BMW, just saying. Yeah, a very good entry, stayed within the realm of the Vector Automotive Challenge in great fashion, and I am overall pretty impressed. So we'll see if this one makes the cut for the final 3. But let's move on to the next car. Okay, next up is the Nord 430, which was designed by Morten Evensen. Sorry if I'm butchering your name. I will probably butcher pretty much everybody's names. And this one looks like we are going in a slightly different direction. Let's see, did he have anything to say about this one? Yes, the 4-seater, 4-wheel drive, inline-4, 3.0-liter engine. Since you're playing with small V8s, I figured I'd go with large inline-4. Interesting strategy. Okay, this one looks like it's a little bit heavier than our previous car, 2957. Still not very heavy, though. Sportiness 38, tameness 62, comfort 29, prestige 25, safety 26, economy 31.2 miles per gallon, so a little bit better there. And I hit the wrong button again. It's like I'm new to this game or something. Okay, so I just saw a weird bug there. It says 1 to 62 miles per hour for 0 to 60. Very funny. Alright, looks like we are using... Is this the larger body? Yes, it is the larger body. And I like the hatch. I usually, with this body style, don't really love this kind of hatchband look. But this car, it's working. The front is pretty... I would say it's styling-wise, it may be a little ahead of its time. This style of headlight and overall the style of aggressive fascia looks a little bit more late 2000s than early 2000s. But it's not so far-fetched that it would be unrealistic. It kind of has a little bit of the similar vibe to the early... Okay, how do I say this? It looks similar to the refreshed 4th generation Camaro. You know, the one that basically ended that generation, the 2002 to, like, I don't know when it ended, 2005, whenever. You know, that kind of era of Camaro styling in the front end, when they had updated it to get rid of the squinty headlights. Yeah, it kind of has that look to it in the front. A little bit more of an aggressive look, though, with those vents. The back, though, is very interesting. It kind of turns this into a three-door car instead of a 2-door car. I don't know why people refer to this as a door. It's really a hatch, but they do it. And then in the back, it's very stubby. Like, it kind of looks very long and intimidating in the front. And then the back, it's very compact and really crammed together. So you really get a cool kind of dual personality looking car here. It's got an interesting look to it for sure. The taillights are those totally not Supra ones, which are pretty much era correct. So those don't lose any points by me as far as keeping within theme. So that is my overall impressions of the body. Another kind of sleek, not overly over-the-top exciting looking car, which is perfect for the theme that we have. Alright, so let's start it. Let's go to the detail stats, see if we see anything really big here. $7,000 material cost, 129 production units, so maybe a little bit more expensive. Let's go to the engine, and let's take a look at this 3-liter inline-4. It is aluminum, good thing at 3 liters, 98.5 by 98.5. Another one with rather pricey bottom end parts, forged steel, I-beam steel, lightweight forged. The only thing to me that this means is that this engine is more capped out in its potential. When I build a car for the Vector Automotive Challenge, I try to make its base engine, its regular engine, to be kind of at the bottom of its performance category. I want it to have a lot of life left in it. That's not necessarily true for all manufacturers. Honda is well known for getting every ounce of power out of their engines they possibly can, and it works very well for them. So it's not the only way to go. Dual overhead cam, 4 valves per cylinder, aluminum heads. We have VVT, no VVL. 10.5 to 1 compression ratio, pretty high, and a 45 cam profile. And then we have multi-point, single, performance intake, running on premium, so a little bit more pricey to run. And pretty average stats in here, only a 6,600 RPM limit due to the size of this engine. I mean, just think about it, this would be half of a 6-liter V8, so just to kind of give you a reference point as to how large this engine actually is. Pretty uncommon to see in a 4-cylinder, especially in this era. Tubular headers, so not going over the top there. 2.5-inch exhaust system, and a straight through reverse flow. It makes 224 horsepower and 214 foot-pounds of torque, which is very competitive. That is your average inline 6 kind of power, maybe a little bit lower, but with significantly more torque. The really nice part is the fact that it has a 22.33 economy rating, so that's going to help those MPGs. 333 pounds. You can see this guy is not light. Keep in mind what the weight of that V8 we just looked at was. Not significantly higher than this, but this is significantly lower than that V8 made. So there's a give and take there for sure. Responsiveness is actually higher than I expected for an engine of this size, but let's run it. Let's see what a 3-liter inline 4 sounds like. Sounds kind of like what I expected in a 3-liter inline 4 to sound like. As my brother would like to say, 4-cylinders are meant to be seen and not heard. So, yeah, it doesn't really matter what it sounds like. So as we go into the trim here, manual, 5-speed ratios, pretty standard stuff there. 17s, 245, 245, again, smarter than us, and put fender flares on it. 4 pistons, again, those are seeming to be pretty common, huh? I don't know of many early 2000s vehicles that only weigh 2,900 pounds to be using 4 piston calipers, especially in the back. Seems like a little overkill to me. Keep in mind in that 4th-gen Camaro I was just talking about that weighed 3,000 bajillion pounds, only used 2 piston calipers up front. Not that they're anywhere near high-performing braking vehicles. Just an interesting point. No downforce being used on this one, so the wings are for looks only. It is fully clad. Power steering, premium interior, so we're going for a little bit more comfort with this guy. Standard safety in the 90s, so we're going backdating a little bit. Entertainment and safety. Looks like some custom work went on here with the suspension. Possibly race settings, I'm not sure. I don't want to mess with it. It's definitely lower ride height, so yeah. I would say we went with a little bit racier of suspension, which is probably what gave it that, see, it's only got a 29.3 comfort, which is strange for the fact that it had all that luxury to it. I'm curious, if we go to comfort, where... Yes, the entertainment quality is losing because it is 90s stuff, and smoothness it's losing out on with that big 4-cylinder. And let's see, bottoming out. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. 3.4% on bottoming out for being so low. And the last thing, the platform is corrosive resistant steel, front or in chassis and body, and double wishbone front and back. But we do have that all-wheel drive, which is probably why the cost was a little bit higher. But you're also going to get a lot more performance out of that lower horsepower number, even though you're getting pretty good amounts of miles per gallon. So that is the Nord 430, and it is time to check out another vehicle. Alrighty, next up is Corvette 6317 with the NMC Z Type, which had 3 different versions. I have chosen to go for the 250. It seems as though that has something to do with the engine type in it, and they all have very different stats, but this one seemed to be probably most in line. So let's see. Revised car. Hey, I hit the right one. I forgot to do this. 36, 65, 32, 40, 34, something. Once again, this familiar body, but much larger, huh? Wow, that is pretty big. Big extended nose, and the tail is way out. Let's see, again with the grill for the exhaust outlets. I really like that. Use of the modded wings, the modded features on this car. So some non-factory automation parts here if you see things that look unfamiliar. Same mod pack that I used. And again, I would say this is almost kind of like the front kind of reminds me a little bit of like a Jaguar of this era, but with a little bit of a modern take to the grills. These angular, angry-looking bottom vent grills. That's a pretty modern feature in cars. I like the hood bump. It's got a little bit of a cowl to it. I like the side vents. So certainly looks like a car that is... when I look at this car, I see a car that is kind of a Corvette Viper... big V8 kind of competitor, not necessarily the more entry-level sports car, just in looks. The back reminds me a little bit of a late 80s Celica, so kind of a complete shift from the front, but it's not dramatically outdated looking in the back, so it certainly still flows fine. Oh, that must be a body feature too, the gas door. Cool. I like the detail. So I guess that is the body. Let's start it and see what kind of engine we're dealing with. Actually, let me do it in order this time for a change. It is monocoque AHS steel. That is a new one to us. It is front longitudinal. It is double wishbone, rear-wheel drive, and just regular steel body. Definitely a very interesting mix. And a relatively tiny looking engine in that huge engine bay. Let's look at that tiny little engine. It is a V8, 85 by 90, so it's a 4-liter V8. Sounds kind of familiar. Single overhead cam, also sounds kind of familiar. Moderately expensive bottom end. Direct acting overhead cam, it is not single overhead cam, so that's interesting. 9.1 to 1 compression ratio. 40 cam profile, VVT, no VVL. And then in the fueling department, we have multi-point EFI, single intake, and standard, single intake, standard intake. It's because single configuration, standard intake would be the way to say that. I thought for a second this may be throttle body injected or throttle per cylinder, but I guess it's just the engine cover that was giving me that impression. Running pretty lean, so this is going to be a pretty efficient engine. On regular unleaded, so it's cheaper to run. Short cast header, so definitely a rather budget build on the engine. And let's see what kind of power it makes. 235, 241. So this is another one that's kind of in line with that V8 that I built for Vector. It's got a lot of potential left in it. It's small. It's kind of low on responsiveness is one thing I'm seeing. High on reliability, but still has a ton of untapped potential in it. You could probably easily get 300 horsepower out of this engine with proper tuning. And when I say that, I mean proper performance tuning, because right now it's got a 21.85 economy rating, so it's maybe tuned a little bit more towards that direction. And then we have a manual 6-speed. with sports compound 18s. 18s, man. What are you, crazy? No, I'm just kidding. 18s is a little bit big for early 2000s, but I guess it's not completely unheard of. And then we have very comfortable brakes. Overall, very kind of lackadaisical braking system in general. Definitely a car set up to be comfortable, not as necessarily as racy. Fully clad with no downforce. We have premium interior. We have premium entertainment. And very good safety, it looks like. Yes, premium 2000s. Traction control, ABS, power steering. This is a car kind of breaking into the luxury category, it looks like. And not an overly aggressive ride height, so staying on theme there. So that kind of explains why its comfort's up at 32 and its tameness is extremely high for the category at 64.9. But sportiness is still a respectable 36.4. Material cost a little bit pricier again, $71.38, and production units of $133.94. So this car is a little bit different than the other ones we've seen. Definitely in a little bit different category, but still definitely within the same theme. So it still counts. It's still within the spirit of the Vector Automotive Challenge. Also, economy is probably the lowest we've seen, 27.8. Okay, so that is the Nord NMC Z Type 250. A mouthful, but that is this car covered. Sorry if it seems like I'm going a little faster. I just realized how many of these I have and how long this episode's going to be, so I'm trying to be as thorough enough as possible. I really appreciate all of these entries, but we got to get through them, so kind of buzzing through a little bit. Alrighty, next up, let's go ahead and look at the Cabaret Sport, which is a car that may be familiar to some of you. If you remember, I did a little bit of a collab there with GT1 Cooper back when we were doing the car company tycoon challenge thingamajig. Basically, it was a beta test, if you will, of the tycoon elements of automation, and part of that was designing the Cabaret. That was an entry into that competition. Well, he has redesigned that car to better match the Vector Automotive Challenge, and it has a 2.8 liter inline 6 now. That's new for sure. 41 sportiness, 66 tameness, 27 comfort, 25 prestige, 24 safety, 42 miles per gallon, huh? And a top speed of 173. This could be some serious competition. Alright, I have seen this car already. I have glanced at it, and definitely I would say Mr. Cooper has gone and designed a car to fit my personal tastes exactly as far as the front goes. Once again, the chrome in the grille I'm not a huge fan of, but very nice use of details here with all the little fog lights, the blinker lights, the badge part of this. You got kind of that third gen Supra front end, I would say, but also I would say this is a little bit dated. This looks a little old school for a 2001-ish car. So maybe some points lost there. I think Vector has done something a little bit more era correct for 2001, so that is something we may need to look into. I never knew that. When you middle click, you recenter the camera. We are 66 episodes in, and I just learned something new about automation. Yeah, when you middle scroll, you can recenter the camera to a certain point of the car. Neat. Well, I'll be darned. Okay, well, let's recenter to the back of the car and see that he also used these totally not Supra lights. We got a lot of vents and grills back here. That's a whole lot of exhaust vent area, diffuser vent area, to have just that single tailpipe. A little bit of an interesting design feature there. Get some reverse lights or reflector lights. Nice detail all around, and I love these kind of spoilers. That body piece needs to end up in the official game. No doubts about it. That is a fixture. That is a fixture that needs to be implemented. Alright, so now let's start this guy up. Let's go to the engine. Let's take a look at this inline 6. Looks like it's fairly mundane at the bottom end, other than low friction cast pistons. So, going for that, oh, and cast iron blocked. Interesting, so this could be cheap too. Very large bore, very small stroke. Dual overhead cam, 4 valves per cylinder. Cast iron head too? How heavy is this thing? 10.0, 55, VVT and VVL, and a 75 on the VVL, so pretty high tech for being an all iron engine, huh? That would be weird. I don't think anybody made all iron engines in the year 2000, but I'll let you slide for now. Multi-point EFI, single intake, performance intake, 90, so we're running on 90, kind of mid-grade fuel, and pretty decent rev limit. Long tubular headers, so this is an engine that is kind of, if you will, tuned out already. And it makes 266 horsepower with its 2.7 liters, 203 foot-pounds of torque. Kind of what I was mentioning about that large inline 4, is you won't usually get even torque numbers with an inline 6 like this, and you can see that here. There's a large separation. And it's making all the power up at the top end, but has a nice, smooth power curve and torque curve. 24.79% economy. Indeed, it is pretty heavy, 486 pounds. I don't know what he's got up his sleeve to go with that big heavy engine, but he must have figured something out. All right, let's take a look at the chassis. The chassis is aluminum, so we have. So let me get this right, man. You decided to spend all of your metal money in your glued aluminum chassis, and you just couldn't afford. You couldn't afford any more aluminum for the engine. And then we have McPherson strut up front, the first time I've seen that, and multi-link in the back. That is a very early 2000s, late 90s Japanese suspension setup, and a polymer body. Alright, so there's some weight loss there with the glued aluminum, easy for me to say, glued aluminum chassis material and polymer panel. I can't speak today. I give up. Panel material. Okay, moving on. Trim. We have a 6-speed manual with some gearing that is pretty aggressive. I was expecting a little bit more of performance out of you, but you got a lot of economy built into this thing, that's for sure. Sports compound, 17-inch tires, 245, 255, pretty standard stuff there. 1 caliper pistons, front and back. Middle of the road brakes. Fully clad, does use downforce. We have standard interior with standard entertainment, but aero correct. Power steering, ABS, and electronic stability, but no traction control. And standard 2000 safety. And looks like possibly some custom suspension settings here, and a pretty high ride height. So when we look at the detailed stats, definitely a lot of tameness. That is a ton of tameness for having 40 sportiness. So these two numbers are, in conjunction with each other, the best we've seen so far. And then to pull off a 26.8 comfort is not too bad either. And once again, that 41.1 miles per gallon is no joke. And the cost is $63.91. Production units at 152. So yeah, this is definitely going to be a very competitive car. I would say so far of all the ones I have looked at, this one's probably the most threatening to us directly. And I kind of expected that. Cooper pretty much knows the kind of cars that I build at this point, so he had a little bit of an easier time than others predicting what I was going to do. Alright, well, that is going to cover Cooper's Cabaret Sport. We'll see if this one makes the final 3. We'll see if I find any new features in the next car, like being able to recenter the camera. And let's see what the next one is. Alright, next up we have this KE2KS, designed by some guy named Killrob. Yep, there it is. It's It's okay. Alright, and next, let's see. Next up would be Coinsake Fan. Oh, I'm just kidding. That's actually going to be enough reviewing for this episode. I started editing these together and realized we're already at like 30-something minutes, so I figured I'm having a lot of fun reviewing you guys' cars, so let's split it up into 2 episodes, and I will try to get that one done by Monday. I've got a little bit of a busy weekend ahead of me. I got autocross on Sunday, so looking forward to getting that season kicked off once again. But hopefully I will have part 2 of the reviews up Monday, and in that episode we will pick the top 3, and if we have time we'll compare against the old Vextron, the 2001 version Vextron that you have yet to see, and then move on from there. I thank you guys very much for your entries. It's been great to see. It was a rough week, but it kind of put a smile on my face every time I get a new entry and see people's support for the series. So thanks for that, and I guess I'll see you next time.